So we're going to do an AoRMA podcast, right?
Right, okay.
Okay.
Love a bit of prep.
Well, this
Topic, agenda.
Well, I think
the prep was, if Chris is here, we could probably do it, and I
Yeah.
saw you. That was our prep.
Yeah.
Right, he'll have an idea.
So, well, I think we should talk about AoRMA anyway, right?
Yeah.
Because as three of the original founders, I don't know if there are any non-original founders, but as three of the original founders, we should probably talk about why we set it up, what the idea was behind it, what we hope to achieve from it, and how it's going so far. So this is kind of like a board meeting, but being recorded.
Okay.
You know? So I'll kick off. So as James Whitelock, Managing Director of Thinking Circles, myself and Chris Cranshaw, sitting next to me here,
Yep.
we spoke about this probably 2 years ago at this Expo, I think 2 years ago.
We met. First time.
met, and we sat down, and we had a chat, and we said, there's a problem with recruitment marketing, and it's not given the kudos that it should do. It's not at a standard that it should be. We believe that we are probably working at that, but there's stuff at the edges that's kind of chipping away at that.
Yep.
And we should probably try and bring on a few more people to up our game a bit and get our seat at the table. Is that about right? Anything I've missed there?
No, I think so. I think that was the empathy behind and the purpose behind why we created it, wanted to create it. I think the key thing for me was realising very quickly we wouldn't be able to do it on our own.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been very good. Yeah, myself, you, and Christine, who's not with us today, but we met us on that day as well. It was a case of we needed to have the right people around us that believed in what we believed in, which obviously introduced Robert, who sat next to me today, Hayden, and Neil.
Yes.
So
we're obviously also joined by Robert Woodford from Marketing Junction. And so, Rob, you were also one of the kind of founders that we brought on kind of right near the start. As Chris said, it was one of those things that we decided we couldn't do this alone, right? And also, it didn't look right that we were doing it alone. So, from your perspective, when we kind of first talked about it, what was it that was it a similar ethos you thought, or was it kind of what were your first feelings about it?
Yeah, no, I think it was that, and I think the fact that it was you two, genuinely people I respected in our space, it was like actually they've come to it with some thought and some intelligence. It's not a way of making money, it's not a way of doing anything other than promoting recruitment marketing and the standard of recruitment marketing. So for me that was really exciting and something I'd long been thinking about as well. How do you do it?
Yeah. So it's an interesting point though, right? So we've all just talked that we want to try and bring up the standard of recruitment marketing. Why does a standard need raising in the first place is a good question, right? What is it that the perception of recruitment marketing in recruitment agencies specifically that we think that needs improving? Why has it got to that position in the first place? Because a lot of other industries don't have that, right? Marketing is given isn't last in, first out. It's much more kind of right there from the bat. So there's something obviously within recruitment that possibly doesn't give marketing the same kudos that it does in other industries. So, Chris, why do you think?
I think primarily recruitment is still very much a sales transactional base, hit the phone, send out your emails, and I think we've seen a massive transformation in the last decade alone in terms of the power of marketing, what that's doing and what the modern day recruiter looks like. However, traditionally, recruitment businesses are still owned and run by the generation that were doing the phones and the emails 10 years ago. So it's very much, it's the next generation of recruitment businesses coming through, realising that actually they're not sales-led businesses, they're sales and marketing-led businesses. But there's a whole community of in-house recruitment marketers that are doing that and are learning that, and there's communities that are already supporting them. The key thing which I wanted to talk about today was the position around us elevating recruitment marketing and what that meant. And I think it's important that we silo this conversation at the moment around outsourced marketing providers.
Yeah.
And one of the key things that we felt that it was broken and it needed fixing was there was this peripheral of ourselves. I've only been in the industry 4 or 5 years as an outsourced provider. You guys are both 10 years plus. But there was only a handful of us 5 years ago. Now every day there's a new marketing provider coming out. What we're finding is that those are those freelancers, those solopreneurs that are coming out on their own, starting off, and they're struggling to compete with the more established agencies like, dare we say it, like ourselves. But also they're winning the hearts and minds of their customers, going into the customers, but unable to expand beyond their skill set. So effectively they're only as good as an internal marketer. So that's what I wanted. One of the key things we talked about as AoRMA is rather than them being a bit of all things to all people and having all these different services and then really doing a lukewarm job of each deliverable, is a case of I'm an expert in this, but I've got a community of partners that can come and help me and collaborate with me, rather than me lose that client to a more established agency.
Yeah.
And I think that was some of the power behind AoRMA and where we are today, where we wanted to take it was, let's support that next generation and don't have guys going out there, or girls, I'll say. We've seen it. We've seen these branding agencies, marketing agencies that are specialists in recruitment marketing that come out of the blue and they're doing really poor jobs. They're eating budgets from clients and not producing results. And that's the perception of recruitment marketing now, is this whole layer of this box ticking type, or we can do a bit of that but we did a really poor job. It burns the impression of that owner, and that owner would tell another 30, 40 owners, recruitment marketing, it's not worth its money, worth its time, I've lost a lot of money doing that.
So Rob, if someone listened to that, maybe even from within in-house or external, would say, well, aren't you all competition, right? You know, I mean, aren't you just kind of feeding all in the same pond? And what's in it for someone who is just like a freelancer or a consultant? And why would they join AoRMA, right? Because they're just going to be in a group of all of their competitors, potentially, right? So what is it about kind of joining AoRMA you think that kind of that supports that?
It's a really good question. I think, you know, you see it actually some of the networking groups, like a lot of CEOs years ago wouldn't speak to each other and now they're all in these networking groups. So I think that's never translated to suppliers. I think with the smaller agencies, and solopreneurs, they get an opportunity to pick our brains and pick the brains of other people on things, you know, conversations around terms and conditions, accounts, you know, what do I do if I've got this situation? So somebody to lean into and ask for advice for, not how do I do marketing, but how do I run a business? So it's that running the business side of things that I think it brings everyone together on. And look, we're all competitors, but I see us more as friendly rivals. You know, we don't go in and, you know, if I know that you're working with somebody, we don't go in and you know, start slating all the work that you're doing and stuff like that. You know, it's behaving. So it's also about raising that perception of recruitment marketing to people.
I mean, I always describe it as sort of being like adults, right? Acting like adults around each other, and that in itself just raises the standard, that you don't feel that you need to have to, you know, that you're right. We're all competition, but we offer all something slightly different, and actually, as long as someone within the AoRMA group wins a bit of work, you know, I'm happier about that, right? Because I know there's a standard, and in the end, that only just keeps on notching up the standard, basically, when someone with the AoRMA badge kind of gets there. And I think there is, for some businesses, there's a difference. They have to change their mindset to kind of understand that way of working. But I'm sure you actually have kind of these conversations with your clients as well, all right? There's a point where you have to just grow up, right? You're not kind of this startup forever. And part of that growing up journey is one, you have to take marketing seriously, but also you have to take influence from the people around you and other businesses. And not, you know, if you're in recruitment, it's way more competitive than in recruitment marketing, right? There's many more of that. So you can't do this without having that conversation. And like you said, Chris, there is this now. CEOs have all these kind of networks and groups that they're member of. So why can't recruitment marketing kind of do the same? For me also, one of the things is trying to help that younger generation, I'm going to say younger because we're all of a certain age, right? But that newer generation into the space, you know, kind of, you know, build their own agencies or find a way that they can kind of, you know, expand their service offerings. And if we can kind of do some of the facilitation around that and have, again, if there's a young kind of a freelancer who's starting the space and they need a videographer, they need website builders, we've done a lot of that already, you know, I mean, for these kind of preferred suppliers. So, yeah, I mean, again, surely that's kind of, I mean, you're kind of keen on that. You do that on mentorship anyway, right? So that's probably surely one of the areas that you're trying to kind of keen on.
I think
Chris.
so. And I mean, there's another big key pillar which we've spoken about in quite in depth, and I think it's an opportunity to showcase this today, was this. We're seeing these new companies coming out and not necessarily knowing how to go to market. They're starting out, they're freelance, they're starting up on their own, one or two people in a small agency, and what they're doing is they're falling into this trap. We're seeing many of us out, it's this whole counter marketing, what they're doing is they're slating 95% of the industry, or however else doing it, and what they're doing is brilliant, but they're actually forgetting to tell the world what they're doing. All they're doing is actually just criticising everybody else that's doing it. So that's their approach to market. They feel that they're in a fight, they're constantly battering. A lot of that comes from desperation, where it's where am I getting the next deal, how am I going to stand out, I might be controversial, I might be bold, or I might actually go and cause a bit of controversy on LinkedIn. That will get my name out there.
Yeah.
But actually, that's what they're doing is the perception of the business owner, what the recruitment business and the buyer looks at that and goes, this feels like a very bitter person having a bit of a rant, but actually they haven't told me what they do.
Yeah. And Rob, I guess one of the other things, without blowing our own kind of trumpets, is hopefully that these smaller businesses can learn from all the fuck-ups that we've kind of gone through over the last kind of 10, 15 years or so, right? So that's surely a reason in itself to try and avoid all of that.
100%. I was talking to somebody only the other day. They're looking at hiring, and I was telling them about the pitfalls that I've been through, where the good hires I made, the bad hires I made, when I'd hired too early, when I'd hired too late, and talking about all of that. And he found that very useful. And I think sort of sharing those type of things, and also sometimes you get into situations, there'll be times when in the future the economy takes a dive. I mean, it's not great now, but there might be a recession, there might be something else. We've lived through all of those, and we've traded through all of those, and actually I found it useful myself speaking to people, but they weren't in the recruitment marketing space. So actually speaking to people when things happen and going, right, this is what you need to do, I think would be really useful for them.
And I think the other thing is hopefully that all the clients that we work with, this starts to give them a gold standard of where they want to go. So if they're looking for the best of recruitment marketing to outsource to, or on the other side, if they're in need of website development, other recruitment kind of marketing providers, suppliers, from marketing to lead gen, whatever else that might be, hopefully in time the AoRMA stamp will be, they'll go, right, we know that they've kind of they're adhered to the charter, which again I always come back to in our conversations, that I think the fact that we've got this charter which you have to sign up to, we're not just another WhatsApp group. It is an association where if you join us, you have to agree to this, our charter, and if you can't keep that charter, then you're going to be kind of kicked out, right? I mean, I know you were that was something we kind of discussed quite a lot right near the start, right, with the charter, Chris?
The charter has to be the pillar. But I think our launch obviously caused a lot of curiosity, but it also caused it raised a lot of questions. And a lot of the questions, I think a lot of people missed the point when it first came out, was, how are you going to police me? Are you going to start governing my work? It's not always about the quality of your work, it's about your behaviours and what you're committing to doing to your customer. And knowing that I can't do that, or I can't do a suitable enough job, what do I do? What's my plan B? And that's what it is that community. We have a sort of scenario only this week where Robert and I, on paper and yourselves, we should be fierce competitors and rivals. We're friendly competitors, we're friendly rivals. We've had a scenario this week where I have a technical issue within my development team, but we don't have the skill set to deliver it. I posed a question to the community, and Roberts has the technical expertise in his team that has solved that problem. That could have cost me thousands of pounds and lots of frustration. If I was not approached that properly, the client, and gone, we'll wing it, we'll try and fix it. We approach that could have cost thousands of pounds and ruined not only the relationship with the customer, but also our reputation as a business with our customer, which then turns into 50 people knowing about you've messed up there.
And Rob, that's one of the keys again. What we're trying to do at AoRMA is that collaboration piece, which I hope in time will just kind of grow and grow and grow. And I'm not sure where it'll kind of end up, but that's a great example, and we've got a few of those, right, where we've kind of we've put stuff in the group and say, look, can anybody help me with this? I don't know how to solve this, and someone else who's now the kind of AoRMA gold standard is that we can trust them that they're going to do a decent job and not fuck it up, and not necessarily be cliquey, but we know there's a standard, right? I mean, that's the great thing about it, right?
And I think a lot of marketing is subjective, right? So there's always going to be times when people don't like something or they do like something, and as you say, it's not about marking someone's homework, it's about the way they conduct themselves. And because we'll all make mistakes and things won't go according to plan, and that's not what it's about. It's not to say those social posts you did are crap, therefore get checked out of the group. It's a case of these are the standards that you need to hold yourself and hold ourselves to.
Yeah, exactly. So, obviously, we launched over the last couple of weeks. So, if anybody wants to know more around AoRMA, it's spelled AoRMA, but not ArMA.
Yep.
So, .org you can kind of go to. You can inquire there if anybody wants to if they think they want to be part of it. As I said, there is a bit of a process, a bit of an onboarding process. So, if anybody wants to know more, they can kind of go there. I guess also, just to finish off, what would be good to kind of think of some of the places that we think AoRMA could go in the future. I mean, we've always had these kind of big grand ideas about what it could be, and Chris, what do you think the future of AoRMA could be? And I'm putting you on the spot a little bit here.
I could swerve that question very easily and say
you're not gonna, because I'm gonna keep pressing.
It will be what our members make it, what it will evolve into.
That's a good answer.
I think it would be extremely arrogant to say that we are an industry body today.
Yeah.
But I think what the plans that we've got, the things we're discussing, and the feedback we're already having from members and prospective members as well, is I think it will become an authority in the industry, very much so. At that seal of approval we talked about earlier on. But I think there's opportunities where it can stem into in-house recruiters as well. We're already seeing the interest we're getting from in-house marketers, especially at the senior level, saying this is a community where I can learn from you, I can gain from your reach as agencies, because you're dealing with 20, 30, 40 companies. I'm very inward, apart from my community I'm part of, whichever network they're in, or marketing community. So I think there's legs, it's got the power. It's just going to take time, and I think it's got to organically grow rather than being pushed and forced. And we've been very public to say we're passionate about this, but we are volunteers. We're driving this on top of our day jobs. We'll see where it takes it, but it's exciting. I'm glad it's everything we wanted to achieve when we launched it, and I think it's got a very bright future.
Rob, same question to you. What do you think the future of AoRMA could be?
Pretty much like to say ditto. But I think obviously we're UK focused at the moment. I think moving forward, I think there's opportunities for us to take the standards, because I think the UK standards of how we work are higher than in a lot of other countries. So I think actually taking it to other jurisdictions is something, and just be more present at events like the Expo.
Yeah.
Right. People seeing AoRMA as kind of the group they go to. There's APSCO, there's team here. There's all other. Why can't AoRMA be here?
Yeah.
Representing marketers.
And I think for me also, there's some more kind of like some of the smaller detail, right? We've got ideas about running events at some point. Obviously, we've got the kind of WhatsApp group, which is starting to become kind of more active. And for anyone who's kind of thinking of joining, the reasons to come over to AoRMA is that it's quite high level, right? It's not just about kind of the day-to-day running of your business. It's about the future of how you're going to run your business and all the things that includes. And I think that's one of the kind of the great things that we're there to offer. I think we're going to wrap it up there. I think we've done a good. I can't see it, but we've gone on for at least half an hour. So, Chris,
very
Rob,
well.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, James.
Thank you.